Kamala Harris is suddenly doing interviews, and I'm going to talk about this with Alex Cooper at Call Her Daddy, with Howard Stern, with Stephen Colbert, with 60 Minutes. They've hidden from the media basically since she ascended on July 21st. Well, now, suddenly she's doing all these interviews. Why? I think the answer is because her campaign is not going well, and they're trying to figure out how to get back momentum. To me, it means that what we are seeing in the gambling markets is reflected maybe in her internal polls. And right now, Trump has opened up a, what do we got, 8-point lead, basically, 54 to 46 in the overall gambling markets, 8.1%. 53.6 to 45.5. I think I'm right. That is an 8.1% lead. I'm never an expert at live math, but I think I'm right on that, an 8.1% lead. If you disagree, you can go buy Kamala Harris odds. It's now legal to gamble on politics in the United States. So no reason that you can't go and say, oh, you're wrong. These markets are wrong. It's just like a betting market. If you think the betting market is wrong in sports, don't tell me. Go place a wager and prove yourself right. So Kamala has fallen behind by 8.1 points as we discuss what's going on in the national gambling markets. She now is down 11% in Pennsylvania. Why is that? You can have your own thesis. My suggestion would be maybe internal polls, absentee ballot requests, and information. Because usually, people say, okay, what moves markets? Usually, information is what moves markets. If you see a sports gambling line moving in a substantial way, it oftentimes means, hey, quarterback's hurt, somebody's suspended. There is some information that is not public yet. We'll see whether tomorrow is 4 weeks out, 28 days until the election. Maybe it's the poor response to Hurricane Helene. But the fact that Kamala is doing all these interviews is, I think, emblematic of her being in trouble. And I wanted to play one cut for you from Alex Cooper here in a sec. This is the Call Her Daddy podcast. I have never listened to this podcast. I've never listened to this individual. I don't know anything about her. I don't begrudge any host who takes any guest. So I don't, Alex Cooper, I don't blame her. I would talk to Kamala Harris if I were her, just like I would talk to Donald Trump if I were us. I would talk to Kamala Harris. I would sit down on OutKick and talk to Kamala Harris for any football game that she wanted me to show up for. I told you this. We've got an official request, an invite into Kamala Harris. I talked to Donald Trump at the Georgia-Alabama game. I would show up. I would be fair. I would ask honest questions of Kamala Harris, just like I have done 10 different times of Donald Trump. But this is Alex Cooper talking with Kamala Harris, and this discussion to me is uniquely moronic because they are talking about whether there are any laws that impact men like abortion laws impact what women are able to do with their body. I want to play it for you. Listen.
I want to pose this question more to you and the Daddy Gang, but one of the biggest conversations in this year's election revolves around a woman's body.
Yep.
I want to take a moment, and can we try to think of any law that gives the government the power to make a decision
I know what you're going to ask.
about a man's body? Let's
No.
just pause.
No.
Is there any law?
No. It's no.
Okay, I shared this clip online that I just played for all of you, and I want to make sure that I get the numbers right because it's gone mega viral. I'm going to tell you in just a sec how many people have watched that on my Twitter account alone. 47,000 likes, 4.1 million views of that video. And I said, Kamala Harris and the Call Her Daddy chick, her name is Alex Cooper, attempt to come up with any governmental law that controls a man's body. Both say there isn't one, then laugh. The correct answer is yes, the draft, which has cost over 1 million male lives in U.S. history. Now, this is not only an indictment of Kamala Harris and Alex Cooper, it's an indictment of everybody that works on their show, because this is a prepared question And neither one of them think of the Selective Service Act, which requires every man, when he turns 18 years old, register for the draft. I had to do it. If you're male and you're over 18 years old, you had to do it too. Now, I don't disagree with this. I think the draft should draft only men. I'm not saying that men are being discriminated against here. Men are, in general, bigger, stronger, and faster than women. They should be primary soldiers in the event that we had a war. Now, I'm 45 now. I basically have aged out of soldier life. I don't think I'm ever going to get drafted, but I have 3 boys, 16, 14, and 10. And when they turn 18 years old, they will also be required to register for the draft. We drafted soldiers to fight in Civil War, the most deadly war that's ever been fought on both the North and the South. We drafted soldiers to fight in World War I, in World War II, in Vietnam, I think also in Korea. And if you are watching this clip and you are old enough, you might be my dad's age, and remember when they had the national birthday draft to find out if you were going to go to Vietnam or not on television. So in the lifetime of many people who will be voting for President of the United States in 2024, men have been drafted and gone on to die under the compulsion of the United States government. That law uniquely impacts men's freedom and the male body in a way that it does not for women. Leaving aside this abortion focus, the fact that neither Alex Cooper nor Kamala Harris could think of this as a law that directly impacts men is embarrassing, not only for them, but their staffs. And the fact that they would be sharing this on social media as if it's some sort of gotcha moment on the men who are leading this country is also a tremendous embarrassment. And let me just tell you, I don't think Kamala's advisors are very smart. She's behind. In the gambling markets right now, she is behind. If the gambling markets are correct, she's going to lose this election. Okay, if you don't believe me on the gambling markets, look at what they're doing, not what they're saying. After hiding her for a long time, they suddenly are doing 60 Minutes, Call Her Daddy, Howard Stern, and Stephen Colbert, all in the space of a few days. That's not something that you do if you feel like your campaign is in a good spot. But look at who is going to be deciding this race. Kamala is going to have to win, I believe, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin in order to be elected president of the United States. Do any undecided voters in Michigan, Wisconsin, or Pennsylvania listen to Call Her Daddy, Howard Stern, or watch Stephen Colbert? I don't think so. Kamala is largely speaking to an audience that is already predisposed to like her. That's not how you win an election. And by the way, I'll talk about this a little bit tomorrow, but this is all Democrat propaganda-focused media. Howard Stern back in the day would have opened his interview with Kamala Harris by saying, "Did you know your husband got the nanny pregnant? What's the story there?" I bet he doesn't bring it up. He also back in the day would have brought up, "Hey, did you know that your husband supposedly slapped a woman?" He's not going to ask any of these questions. She is doing The View. She was asked what she would change with Joe Biden. She had no answer. That was a mess. Every time she does an interview, it gets worse. 60 Minutes, the full interview played last night. I may have to play some of these clips for you later in the week. It was an unmitigated disaster. She couldn't explain why border crossings have quadrupled. Kamala doesn't have anything that she would change. Crazy. Call Her Daddy, messy interview. We played some of that for you yesterday. Colbert tonight. Here is the problem. And the Wall Street Journal has a big article about it right now. She has to appeal to voters in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And that is not happening for her. And the Wall Street Journal has a big piece about her struggle with voters who are high school educated, blue-collar workers. Kamala does not connect with them. And I told you that I thought this was going to be the issue, what I call the Big Ten voter, the football fan out there. Trump connects with them way better. We're exactly 4 weeks from Election Day. That is, many of you are going to be able to vote on November 5th. Many of you are going to be able to get out and vote early. And the numbers are not good for Kamala. She is in a messy, not good situation as she goes forward. In that Wall Street Journal article, they cite the campaign of Tammy Baldwin. She is the senator from Wisconsin. Cook Political Report just moved that from lean Republican into straight toss-up. We'll talk with Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin, who won his race in 2022, about what he sees on the ground in Wisconsin. But Tammy Baldwin's internal polling had her only up 2 on Eric Hovde, and it had Biden down 3. Sorry, Kamala down 3 to Trump in Wisconsin. I think Kamala's in real trouble because she has to win Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, all 3 of them. And I think right now she's in danger of losing all 3 of those states. You hear a lot about the public polling, and there's all sorts of different stories that are out there. I'll give you one. Trump, according to the New York Times, is up 14, 55 to 41 in a New York Times poll that came out today. Now, I don't think Trump is going to win by 14 in Florida. That's a massive number. If Trump wins by 14 in Florida, he's winning the national popular vote, and he's going to win a lot of races that nobody's even talking about. Virginia, New Hampshire, you name it. He will win a bunch of places that they are not anticipating even being that close. But if Trump wins Florida by anything close to double digits, 7, 8, certainly 9 or 10, North Carolina is not going to be that close before all is said and done. Georgia is certainly not going to be close. Trump won Florida by about 3 in 2020. If he's winning close to double digits in Florida in 2024, again, I think he has a good chance of winning the national popular vote, and he's going to win the Electoral College comfortably. I told you that I was confident that Kamala Harris was behind, and that was because out of nowhere, she suddenly did 60 Minutes, Call Her Daddy, Howard Stern, Stephen Colbert, and The View. Those interviews did not go well for her, which was the reason she was not doing interviews in the first place. They were actually disasters for her. But you don't change your trajectory if everything is going well. And the analogy I used to connect it to sports, I said, if you're a running team and you don't have a lot of offensive explosiveness, as long as you lead or stay within one score or so, you can keep running the exact same game plan. But as soon as you fall behind, you are in trouble. And Kamala is behind. Wall Street Journal had a big article saying she's not connecting with Big Ten voters, saying that the internal polls, which reflected from Tammy Baldwin in Wisconsin, showed Trump winning Wisconsin by 3 and her only up 2 on Hovde. You usually leak in extra internal polls to the media because you're trying to encourage people to change their behavior. Today, in the last hour or so, Quinnipiac came out with polls showing Trump up in Wisconsin and Trump up in Michigan. Now, it had him down a couple of points in Pennsylvania, but if Trump wins Wisconsin, Michigan, or Pennsylvania, the math for Kamala Harris to be elected president becomes really, really difficult. This comes on the heels of a New York Times poll that had Trump up 14 in Florida and of gambling markets that have Trump as a substantial favorite in Georgia, North Carolina, and Arizona. If Trump wins Georgia, North Carolina, and Arizona, he only needs one of Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, or Michigan to get the electoral majority he needs to become president of the United States. So this is a big deal. Now, the easiest pathway, as I've said for some time, is Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania. That puts Trump in the presidency. It doesn't even matter what happens in Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, or Nevada. But if he wins Georgia, North Carolina, and Arizona, as he is a big favorite to win all three of those right now, and one of the Big Ten states, Wisconsin, Michigan, or Pennsylvania, he's also president of the United States. Right now, I think Trump should be favored to win the election. Those polls coming out are telling you what the internals for Kamala Harris are showing and where her challenges are. Now, as I am speaking to all of you in real time, Trump has opened in the poly market presidential markets, he has opened a lead of roughly 7 points. As I am speaking to all of you, 53% chance that Trump wins, 46% chance that Kamala Harris wins. That is the biggest lead that Trump has had in a month. The biggest lead, honestly, I believe, let me see if I can scroll over here and see. I think that's the biggest lead that Trump has had over Kamala Harris, period, since she became the nominee, basically going all the way back to July. So the betting markets are telling you Trump is opening up a 7 percentage point lead in poly market. Now, others of you out there say, oh, well, poly market's rigged. Trump is also up in, let's see, dead even with Kamala Harris in Predicted. They're tied at 52. And in Kalshi, which is an additional betting market that is now legal. You can bet on the elections in the presidency right now. Trump is dead even with Kamala Harris, 50-50 in those marketplaces as well. The reason why I bring that up is things are trending very well for Donald Trump as we sit here 27 days out from the election. And I always say, don't pay attention to what people say, pay attention to what they're doing. And all these media outlets that Kamala Harris did, which has not gone well at all for her, they all are telling you the same story, which is Kamala Harris is running like she's behind. Given that early voting is starting basically everywhere now, if you're not already able to vote early now, you will be able to vote early next week. I'm voting early. I am planning on voting next week, which is the earliest I can vote in the state of Tennessee. And I would encourage all of you to get out and vote as well as early as you possibly can, because as soon as your ballot is banked, then everybody else out there can focus on other lower probability voters. That is, if you really care about your side winning, your vote being in early helps massively.